Let's quickly summarize the ends of the dream pieces that we've been seeing in Derech Hashem. So basically what he told us is as follows. He told us that there is a couple of different sources that dreams could come from. One, they could come from nothing. They could come from just our imagination, the foods we ate, etc., etc. Or they could come from malachim, in which case we're going to get an accurate dream. Or they could come from shadim, in which case we're going to get an inaccurate dream. Then he points out that every single dream is going to have some elements which are not true. Some elements which are not true, which, by the way, explains what happened in this past week's parsha. When Yaakov says to Yosef, he says, the moon, he doesn't understand where the moon is. He assumes the moon is his own mother. He says, obviously it's a dream. It's not a nevuah, because we're going to see a nevuah is 100% accurate. But if it's a dream, there's going to be inaccuracies. He says, how could it be? Aniva imcha, is your mother going to come? Your mother's no longer living. Therefore, it must be the whole thing is a dream, and therefore it's meaningless. It's not a nevuah, right? Basically, what he's trying to tell Yosef is that everything he's conveying is simply not true. That's the backdrop over there. So practically speaking, when a person has a dream, a vivid dream, is it a real dream? We really don't know. The poskim basically, most of the Jewish thinkers basically say, don't spend so much time thinking about dreams because there's so many unknowns over here. There's so many possible things that could be getting in the way. Even the most true dream will have something that is false in it, and therefore it's probably not worth it. That said, if a person is really caught up in a dream, we do have, there's something called, where a person has to go ahead and will ask a beis din they'll sit in front of a court of people, 3 people, and say you should nullify any of the negativity of the dream. And so that is one thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that there is a Gemara, a long Gemara in Brachos, which goes back and forth about how substantial dreams are, and basically concludes it really depends on the interpretation. And what that means is that it's less about the dream itself, it's more about the words we say to interpret the dream. In other words, words are very powerful. Dreams are a bit of a mess. But the words we use to interpret the dreams, that in some ways is even more powerful. And that's what the Gemara says, that however they're interpreted, in some ways that's how it's going to be followed. Some people, for that reason, don't share dreams with other people, or certainly don't share dream interpretations because of the fear of how's it going to be interpreted. But the bottom line is, generally speaking, because of all this confusion, it's possible some true facts come through. We don't know how to interpret it, and therefore better to ignore. That said, it's possible that some of the things that we are dreaming are accurate, but it's important to, it's accurate. Certainly, if a bad dream, better not to say it out loud. But if it overwhelms you, then there is what to do. There is a process what to do where a person could go ahead and have that dream, have a beis din, so to speak, nullify the dream through a ceremony that we could talk about, practically speaking, in other times. We're going to move on from dreams and eventually contrast it with nevuah, which is radically different than a dream.